Well, I know what you're thinking. Who put this truck on top of my air dam? Well, there it is, folks. Finally, everyone has been much anticipating the arrival of the 2000, and what year is this? 24 Toyota Tacoma, the midsize, the smaller than midsize truck. And by the way, this is a particular interesting one in that it is a TRD model, but it is not a TRD. With the trucks, you normally associate Toyota racing development with off-road stuff, but this is an on-road truck. Amazingly, it's only two-wheel drive. It's one of the first Tacomas I've ever seen in my life, living in the Northeast, that has two-wheel drive. So we will probe its secrets. We will see its changes, because this is an all-new platform from the frame up. So hang on, folks. It's going to be a bumpy ride, perhaps. Stay with us. We have grill louvers. Right now the grill louvers are open. They were closed earlier, but now they're open. And let's take another look at this thing. This has got one of the things I noticed right off the bat about this truck is it is very much a mini Tundra, in that the styling is very similar, and there's a lot of other things about it that are extremely similar to the new full-size Tundra, which was launched in 2022. Now, there's a big important reason for that, is because the frame is this all-new frame that is being shared by the Tundra and this vehicle and the new Land Cruiser. And as far as the new 4Runner is concerned, I don't know for sure. But this is one thing you're going to get real familiar with, if you haven't already gotten familiar with it, is there's only two cab variations available in the whole Tacoma line, and that is this double cab, which is also a crew cab, which is a big four-door version, and the other is called the extra cab. And the extra cab only has two doors, but it has a space behind the seats for storage for tools and things like that. I'm really anxious on getting a hold of that one, because I think that's a real interesting idea, because I'll be real honest with you. I always try to be honest with you. I don't like crew cabs. I think they've taken over. The manufacturers have convinced everybody that's the way to go, because they're basically selling the notion, especially with the half-ton series of pickups, by all the manufacturers, that it's a second car, and you should have four-door to haul the kids to soccer practice in, and that kind of thing. And they're also more expensive, and at least with the other manufacturers, with the exception of Toyota, you can still get a extended cab or even a standard cab, I believe, unless they've pulled something, I don't know. But when it comes to the compact range, I'm staying out of the sticker bush. When it comes to the compact range, that's what you're going to see: four doors and a crew cab. And that's also true for like any of the Tundras that have the iForce Max engine. The only way you can get that vehicle is with a crew cab configuration, because the battery is under the rear seat. Now, this particular engine, the engines are all new. We used to have a 2.4 or 2.5 liter four-cylinder available on the Tacoma, or a V6, 3.5 liter V6. Well, now we have nothing but four cylinders. What this vehicle has is a turbocharged 2.4 liter four-cylinder, and it has so much more power than the old four-cylinder did. It's quite brawny in that respect. And then there's the iForce Max engine, which is a hybridized version of a 2.5 liter, I think. inline four. So you got two turbocharged inline fours to pick from, and one's a hybrid and one isn't. And the hybrid system is exactly the same hybrid system that they put on the Tundra, which is there more than anything else to boost the torque and horsepower numbers. It doesn't do much at all for fuel economy, just so you know. That particular engine for this particular truck, or I should just, not this particular truck, but the Tacoma range, it's not quite here yet. It'll be here a little bit later in the year, and hopefully we'll get to test one for you. But everything about it's different, and yet this is the fascinating thing about this truck to me. All the numbers are about the same as the previous generation Tacoma. The driving position, and when you get in the truck, it feels different in the front because the floor seems like it's a little bit lower than it, or is it lower or higher? Lower, I think. I'm trying to remember, because the Tacoma always felt strange to me. I always got used to it and then it was fine, but initially when I would first get in an older model Tacoma, like a 23, you would feel, it didn't really feel cramped, it just felt weird. But this truck, you seem to have a little bit more room, but it's, in terms of all the dimensions on the interior for your legroom and your headroom and everything else, it's just about exactly the same as the previous Tacoma, as is the payload capacity. It's slightly higher on some of these models, some of the Tacoma models, but it's basically the same. What's really improved dramatically though is the towing ability of this truck. Because of these new engines, because of the new transmission, you used to have a automatic that I believe was 6 speeds. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 6 speed. Well, the new one is an 8-speed automatic transmission. And you also have the option on some models, a fairly narrow range of models actually, to supply yourself with a 6-speed manual transmission. So it's one of the few trucks you can still get a manual transmission on. Now, another big difference in this truck compared with the old one, by the way, that wheelbase is about 131 inches, and that is a 5-foot cargo bed. You can get a 6-foot cargo bed with, I think, 149-inch wheelbase, I think it is. But with the crew cab, that's the standard bed length is 5 feet. It has because it has this new chassis on it, this new frame, you also have, on most models, coil springs in the back instead of leaf springs. Now, there are a few models where you can still get leaf springs. Again, I want to drive one of them personally. But this has the new coil spring setup, very similar, identical practically to the Tundra. And we'll talk about that, whether or not, what does that do for you? Does it improve ride quality? Because that's what the goal is. And we'll discuss that as we drive along. But anyhow, it also has a lot of things that the previous Tacoma had, including, whee! Can you see that? God, it's kind of dark, isn't it? It's in the shadow. Well, that is your compositry. It has a composite rear bed, and that's proved to be a pretty good thing on these Tacomas because it won't rust, and it's real tough. It's real solid. You can do all kinds of, you can beat on it. And I've actually seen, I've heard of people managing to somehow knock a hole in one of these things. I mean, people can do anything to destroy anything. Tailgate is really light, by the way. I think it's mostly aluminum, which is great, very easy to deal with. And it has one of these side things here, which, or no, it doesn't. I thought it did. You have a situation where you can actually, someone knocked a hole in one and you can actually have it repaired. There's a way of repairing it since it's a composite. Much easier to repair if you knock a hole in the steel or aluminum. And it's a real nice way to go because my favorite aspect of it is the lack of corrosion that you have to worry about, and also the fact that it's much lighter. It helps overall make the vehicle lighter overall so that you can increase payload capacity. But like I said, it's been on the Tacoma for years now, and this is just the latest permutation of that. You'll notice the styling is so similar. The rear styling in particular is so similar to the full-size Tundra. I mean, they definitely came from the same school of thought. And there's things about that that I don't like that I will show you in just a moment. But overall, it's a beautiful truck from the side. I'm not real wild about the rear styling especially, or the front, but at least one of the interesting things about the front, they kind of blended the new Tundra look with the old Tacoma look, so it looks familiar. It looks like the truck that you are familiar with. So without any further ado, let's take a look at that new engine. And we have a real treat because this is a pre-production unit. I have to make that, I'll mention that numerous times because it's important. Slightly different than what you would actually get if you went to the dealer and bought one, because this one is pre-production. It's not a production unit. But we have no engine cover on our engine, so you'll be able to see all the stuff. So let's take a look. Well, looky there. There's 2 holes right there for putting your prop rod to hold the hood open. Isn't that interesting? Unlike the Tundra, which I complained about profusely, is the fact this hood opens much more. It opens enough so you can really get to stuff and see stuff. The new Tundra hood, to me, needs to open up about 4 more inches because, I don't know, it's just me. I like getting some light on the subject, you know what I mean? But here is this beautiful new turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, our I-Force. And as you can see, we'll go over here. Woo! Look out, camera shadow. Here it looks like this right here's our air intake, which it looks like, looks like there's rubber thing. It seals right up against the hood. That's interesting. Keep water out, that's for sure. But here's your air box, and here's your primary entrance of air, which goes into your, right down here on the passenger side is your turbocharging system. And right down there, that's your catalytic converter. But as with most normal turbocharging systems, you have the exhaust-driven side, and then that turns an impeller that sucks in that nice cool air and then compresses it, which makes it hot again. So then it goes through a intercooler system to cool down, and it comes all the way around this side over here. And there's your injection side. So where the fuel comes in and that nice cold air comes in. And there's all kinds of little tricks to keep the engine cool, because that's one of the things you got to watch with turbocharging naturally. But as you can see, it is a 4-cylinder engine, a 2.4 liter, just like say something, you know, in like a RAV4 or something like that. But it is mounted longitudinally instead of transversely from side to side. And that's nice because it directly connects the drive shaft with the crankshaft of the vehicle. They're all on the same plane, which is neat. And here's your 1, 2, 3, 4. There's your cylinders right over there. I mean your sparklers that go into your cylinders. And it's got all kinds of neat, sophisticated stuff on it in terms of variable valve timing and all that good stuff. And you do have a big serpentine belt that I can see. But like I said, your power steering is electric. Or I haven't said that to you yet. I will say that numerous times because it's actually one of my favorite things about this engine is the quality of the steering feel is really, really good. So how much horsepower? Well, we got 278 horses at a peak of 6,000 RPM. By the way, this splits into 2 different parts, this air induction system here to go into your turbocharger. That's interesting. Sorry, miles away. But it's nice too because by mounting it longitudinally that way, you have much easier access to your turbocharger. Most of the cars that are 4-cylinder turbochargers now, when they mount it transversely this way, it usually puts the turbocharger in the back, and it could be a lot harder to get to for any kind of service needs. But this is much easier, much more straightforward. So, that is that. Now what is our, I don't see, the sticker has not been applied to this vehicle yet on what kind of oil it uses. I'm going to take a wild guess and say 020. But I'll see if I can find that out. That's the only bad thing about these pre-productions is there's so much information missing. I don't have a owner's manual or anything like that, so I can look this stuff up for you. But all this will become clear in time. Something else I want to show you here that's amazing is this big old battery. It's a little 4-cylinder engine, but a huge battery. And that's a whole lot of electrical power for your needs. But there you go. So that is the I-Force. And like I said, the I-Force Max will have the addition of a electric motor that I believe is between the engine and the transmission. They sandwich it right in there. So that is how that works. And I did mention before, we got cool stuff like the ventilator system here, which opens these slats that allows cooling air in or closes them to keep cooling air out to heat up the engine faster, or if you're driving in really, really cold conditions and that sort of thing. Wowie zowie, an 18-inch wheel, a 265/55 R18, as a matter of fact, general grabber. And one thing that this particular TRD Sport has, along with a few of the other models, is larger brake rotors. This has 13.3 inch as opposed to 12 point something inch on some other vehicles, some other Tacomas. So this has a little bit better braking, I would think. It seems to be fine. I haven't detected any huge change from anything as far as compared to the old Tacoma, which I don't recall having bad brakes. But whenever you have more brake capacity, it's always, always good. And it may have to do with the fact that you also have this new towing capacity on. This vehicle is 6,400 pounds, and the payload capacity, incidentally. And this is taking into account optional equipment, which this vehicle absolutely has, and it is 1,200 pounds. So, you know, it's really strange with these compact or mid-size pickups nowadays. You really have about the same capacity that you have on the larger half tons, but it varies. I don't know what's going on with that and what that is determined by, to be honest with you, because the tires are usually more than adequate to tow like a 2,000 pound, or to pull or haul, I should say, a 2,000 pound payload, but none of these trucks usually has a 2,000 pound payload limit as established by the manufacturer, either the compact, the mid-size, or the full-size pickups. Now, one thing they've done that's Tundra-esque that I hate is if you put the tailgate down, which is dampened, of course, beautiful, you don't have, it would be nice to have something over here. So yeah, this is a little loose probably because it's a pre-pro. A nice place to put your foot so that you can haul yourself up into the back of the truck. Normally, with a regular old style bumper, there'd be a place right there where you could step. And instead, you have nothing. It's the same as the Tundra, although the Tundra has like a $600 option, which is a step that pops out that you can use. But it's just, I sometimes wonder about some of this stuff, what they were thinking about, because they're thinking about aerodynamics or styling more than they're thinking about functionality, in my opinion. And we need that functionality. I mean, my God, it's a pickup truck after all. But we'll see how we do. One thing about this is a very small bed at only 5 feet, but it's deep. It's deep down there. It's deep down there. So you can probably get a fair amount of stuff in it. And it's fairly wide. This pickup has a fairly wide stance. I still think the overall width, height, and other things are real similar to the previous generation Tacoma. So we shall see what we shall see in terms of how this thing handles its new chores. And this being, like I said, the sport street model, it's kind of limited in what you can do. It has tons of ground clearance. I think it has the same ground clearance as the other four-wheel drive versions of this truck, which is not the way it used to be with the Tacomas of old. And the pickups that came before what was called the Tacoma. And you also have, just being two-wheel drive, I don't know if you have an automatic limited slip or anything. I haven't so far had any problems getting in and out with a little bit of snow, but we're about to test that in just a second here. and see if I can get out of here. So anyway, there's your introduction to this new Tacoma, and we'll get more in depth right away. Well, this is different. Well, in our usual survey of the interior of this vehicle, which in this particular case is your Toyota Tacoma TRD Sport, we have a malfunction area going on. I think it has something to do with the computers. The zeros and ones are having a conflict with each other. But we'll go ahead and I'll give you all the information. That the vehicle drives fine right now. I don't really know what all this stuff is telling me. But as mentioned before, very, very important, this is a prototype. They don't even call it a pre-production unit. They call it a prototype, which is interesting. But I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if this is some kind of a weird diagnostic something that's going on in the vehicle, because I imagine they're using this vehicle, in addition to giving a preview to the press as to what the vehicle's all about, they are also probably doing a lot of data mining on this thing to fine-tune everything. So I'm going to give it it's not good that it has to go into the shop right now with 3286 on the clock, but I'm giving it a huge grain of salt because of that, because it is a pre-production unit, a prototype, if you will. That explains the jet engine that's got in the bed area. That's for your jet propulsion. I don't think that's going to be on the production version. But anyway, interesting thing about this is, like with so much of the rest of the vehicle, is very similar in so many ways to the new Tundra, as you can see. It's got a lot of plastic trim here. This blue Tacoma and the TRD inserts around are kind of interesting. I don't know if that comes in different colors depending on exterior color, or even if that even is going to match this when it goes into production. If this color would be, this might actually, these colored panels might actually be white to match the exterior. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Guesswork. But it does almost, but not quite match my phone case there. So I admire that. But anyway, we have a very, as with something that's become very commonplace. I'm trying to get rid of that. There we go. Each particular trim level, not all of them, but most of them do have a slightly different instrument cluster. This has been going on for quite some time, especially since we've gone to virtual instruments, and the virtual gauges on this thing are such that it really is. I'm still a big fan of good, beautiful analog mechanical instruments, but these are really good. They're very easy. They're very straightforward analog, similar to what you would get if it was mechanical. And it's a good thing. It's a very good thing, because I've found it very easy to drive. Put it this way, it's very familiar to anybody who's ever driven a previous generation Tacoma. It looks nice. I don't believe there's numerous themes on this particular one. And I never was able to find out exactly how you adjust the trip odometer. There is no indicated trip odometer down there, just the odometer. And I can't find a place to tally up into the instrument cluster the trip odometer or reset it. Now, as you can see to the right, inside the speedometer, it says trip B, and it says 2,021.9 miles. I don't know how they reset that. I've looked. I've been assuming it's in the main cluster, or excuse me, in the main screen, which, by the way, is an optional 14-inch massive. I believe that's the exact same size that's in the Tundra, and it's huge. It is just mounted low enough so you can see over it, but unfortunately, when you see over it, you got the hood. Like the Tundra, it has this massive hood out there that I don't remember the previous Tacoma having the hood as high as this is, and this is something that people like Consumer Reports have been complaining about for a long time with pickups and SUVs. The hood is so high, you could have a child or a dog or anything else run right in front of you, you wouldn't see it. Well, I think one of the reasons the manufacturer's ignoring that and going right ahead with it is, with the bigger hoods, is because most of these vehicles now have a system that can detect anything and running in front, and it will even put the brakes on for you. So maybe that's what's going on with it. But from a visibility standpoint, I feel like there's almost 20% of me looking out the window that is obscured by the hood. I wish it would slope down more and be more, so you'd be able to see, especially if you were going to drive off-road, which this vehicle is not designed to be driven off-road. This is a road-going version, a sport version, if you will. Another interesting thing is on this one, and I feel like this is definitely a prototype situation, but I could be wrong, but there are absolutely no handholds here in the A-pillar or up here for you to grab hold of to assist your entry into the vehicle. The other side, the passenger side, has both overhead and in the A-pillar. So I can't help but think there may be some other reason, but if that's going to be the production version, I'll be very surprised, because that means you just got to grab hold of the steering wheel, which is fine, but it's much easier to have something else to grab hold of, especially the ones in the A-pillar. Somebody complained about, I remember seeing, because they put one in the Tundra after people have been complaining for years about not having a nice grip that's easy to get to help get in the vehicle. And so Toyota answered that by putting one in, and some people said, "Hey, I don't like that. I don't like it's in the way. I don't like the look of it." What? What? No. It's very good to have. It's very handy for people of all ages, sex, and bodily makeups. It helps you get into the vehicle. So we have a beaucoup de switches over here. We don't have anything that's the odometer, but there's so many blank switches here, it makes you wonder what all that the production version will come with. The ones that are here, this is of course your dimming of your instruments. This is one of the greatest things ever. It's been on, sorry about that, there we go. It's been on Tundras for quite a long time, and now on the Tacoma. I don't remember it being on the previous Tacoma, maybe it was, but it's a way to steer or to lower, or your, what's the word I need, do a vertical adjustment of your headlights when the vehicle is loaded and the bed is compressed a bit and the headlights therefore head upwards so that they're blinding people. You can adjust that right there with that little thumb thing, and it's great. That is such a useful feature. A lot of the pickups now, especially in the higher trim lines, have an automatic system that adjusts it for you, but I really like having the manual adjustment. I think it's terrific. This one right here is your automatic headlights, which will dim if they see headlights coming your way and you have the brights on, and you can just turn it on and off, which is great. Traction control on and off, which I believe, automatic limited slip differential. Oh, well, you know what? I was wondering about that, because this is just a two-wheel drive vehicle and has a lot of power, especially a lot of low-end torque, but the wheels in the rear have been very good about staying in traction on loose substrate, even a little bit of snow and mud. And I was wondering if it had an automatic limited slip, and it clearly does. So that helps explain why it's been very, very sure-footed, surprisingly so, because I've been complaining about the fact that in this part of the world, you almost never see any two-wheel drive pickups. They're rare. The only people that have them, some fleet companies have them for their workers. A few people buy them, but they're very, very, very few and far between on dealership lots, because most people want, with a pickup, especially if it's going to be unloaded a lot of the time, they need all-wheel drive. So, but this thing has done very, very well. I have to say, I've been very pleasantly surprised. That and the fact that it has a hell of a lot of ground clearance, which I'll show you, and I'll also show you the fact it doesn't have any underbody armor really, but it does well. I mean, it does real well on everything I've driven it on. It's been fine, very, very in control. So that's a good thing. That's a plus. Now on our steering wheel, I wonder if I can, let me see if I can do this here, you know, put that there. Will that help? That help? Not really. That helps. My hand. On your left side is where you basically have cool stuff like this little computer in the middle that's going to ignore me now because, oh, I can do that. Oh, I can make it go away. Look at all that. I can, look at that. I didn't realize I could actually make those warnings go away. Well, they're gone, but the lights, all these lights are on. It's 1, 2, 3. I still have a tire that's low, apparently, even though I've checked them all and they were fine. Interesting. I'll have to look into that again and see if we just have a slow leak that I have not been keeping adequate. What I did before. Oh, see, it's doing it again. It's going to come back and do that, I think. But anyway, on this side you have access to that little central trip computer thingy, and this is how you can change your settings. Press it down and there's your settings, and you can go up and down. Driving support, messages, blank. Yeah, and what's really interesting, you'd think it'd have in the message section, you think there'd no messages. You'd think it would be saying something about all these warning lights, but it isn't. So, like I said, this reeks of a prototype, because it's just got all kinds of things that probably were not going to be part of the way it's wired on the with the computer system on the production version. So, but anyway, there's that. This is a radio area here as far as your volume goes. Activate your phone, talk to the car. What happens if I do that? Voice recognition is initializing. You're never going to recognize my voice. No, Boots has the kind of thing that they call a top secret security voice that cannot be duplicated under any circumstances. Well, anyway, there's that. On the right-hand side is your cruise control array, which is, as you see, a little bit confusing initially because you have multiple modes you can set up. You have a mode setting here. You have just the basic on-off here. You have whether or not you're using lane centering there, which the electric power steering will actually steer the vehicle for you and steer you in between the lines as it is. This is a radio mode, and this is your favorite. I have the radio turned off right now, but this adjusts your favorites. Let me check that, make sure that's working. I'm fascinated by all the things that aren't working. Yep, that's exactly what it does. It does that. You select your favorites, and you can literally go back and forth in your favorites using this thumb button right here. Okay, everything else is very straightforward. You got your windshield wipers where they should be on the right hand side. Interestingly, the on-off, they all come standard, I believe. All the Tacomas now come standard with push button starting, I think. Even the SR does, I believe. And I'm going to back up a little bit here. All right, we're backing up. All right, sorry I had to do that. There's the traffic situation here. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, they're all having the push button starter up here, and it's way high. It's really interesting. I don't know why I found that kind of fascinating. I was always searching for it down in here, but it's right up. It's way up top there, with your TRD logo on there. Then you have this massive screen, which I've talked about before. Toyota's way of doing things in terms of the screen, I find a bit vexing. I'm still working my way around it, but it doesn't seem as logical and easy to find stuff as I would like. And it's easy. I mean, the touchscreen part of it does work fairly well, but there's all kinds of things to it that, like, I can't find things that I'd like to find. As far as the adjustment goes, they still want you to do this thing where they absolutely want you to register yourself in the vehicle so it knows who's driving the vehicle. And again, that's I guess if you have 3 or 4 people driving the vehicle, that makes sense. But otherwise, it's going to usually be 90% of the time one person driving this thing. And they don't need all that information. But everybody, they're all desiring to have information, because that way they can learn your habits, what you like, what you don't like. And it's like everything else. I don't know if you've noticed this, but you do anything now, they keep saying they're offering what they think you'll like. This is for you. And A lot of times it's stuff you have no interest in or just don't want to be bothered with that. We haven't gotten to that stage with cars yet, but I could just see it happening. I can see as, perhaps you'd like to turn the air conditioner on a little higher. It's pretty warm outside. You know, it's going to happen, folks. Probably there's a car out there that's already doing it, but this has to stop. Leave me alone. I just want to drive my car to the grocery store. Well, anyway, but that's real straightforward. You don't have everything is pretty much touchscreen based. You have a volume and on-off knob, but you don't have a tuning knob. So you got to go through all the rigmarole of using the touchscreen, which I find very distracting in order to find stations. But, you know, it's the way of it. I mean, it's not like Toyota's unusual in this regard. Quite the opposite. That's what everybody's doing. So, drop down. The most recognizable thing on the vehicle is, in fact, the climate control system, which is very, very straightforward. You have a single, you don't have dual zone on this particular one. You do have a single zone, and you just adjust your temperature when it's in the automatic mode, or you can go to down here and then pick your mode right here of all the different things you want. Then you hit automatic, it'll go back to automatic. On either side here we have your heated seats, and these heated seats are great, by the way, and I really like, they're a fabric, a textile that is very, I have a feeling it's going to be real comfortable in the summer. It just seems that like it's the kind of fabric that would breathe well. It also seems very, they're very durable for a fabric, and it's got excellent side bolsters on it. So support of the seats, I give top marks to the seats. They're very, very, they're perfect as far as I'm concerned, as far as the degree of support you get on your lower back and everything else. What's really interesting about the driver's seat, the seats are completely manual in this vehicle. You don't have any automatic electric assist that are so common with power seats. This doesn't have power seats, but it does have one power mode. And the power mode is, in fact, your adjustable lumbar, which you can, and it works great. You can, that's fully electric, little air bladder, I guess, and everything else. But the rest of it is completely manual. You just, whoa, you slide back and forth. Again, it's, you know, this is the base price of this vehicle is $39,400, I believe. And that's an awful lot of money for, there's a lot of stuff on this vehicle like that that's just not here. So, will pricing be adjusted a bit by the time it shows up at your dealer in quantity? No idea. It may or may not. We'll see. Speaking of which, I just noticed something. The mirrors on this are very good. They're a little higher than I would like. I wish they'd be just a hair lower so you can see over them better. But all in all, they're a real good size, and they offer excellent views on each side, which is terrific. Speaking of mirrors, this thing can tow 6,400 pounds. There is an incorporated trailer brake controller on a lot of models. I guess it's part of the towing package. This vehicle does not have that, but I'm assuming they probably put it right here or right here, somewhere where it's convenient. But it is nice that they have a factory option for you that will help facilitate your trailering. It's not a big deal to put a aftermarket brake controller, trailer brake controller, and a lot of them work a lot better than the ones that come with the factory trucks, but it's nice to have. And it's one less thing you got to worry about. If you are going to tow a trailer and you buy the truck, it's ready to go. You just plug her in, and you can do various other things. As far as all the assist stuff it has on it for towing, I'm not familiar yet exactly what the Tacoma is going to have. I don't think it's going to be as comprehensive as what the Tundra has, which is, you know, it'll back itself up and do all kinds of things for you. So, but the facilitation of the electric power steering lets it do that kind of thing. So it'll be popular with a lot of people, I think, to have that towing package. Let's go down here. Where's our four-wheel drive switch? We don't have one, doesn't have it, but we do have a very conventional mechanical shifter, which is great. You have a tow haul mode, which, yeah, it's working fine. And then you have the drive mode. Right now we're in It won't. It will not adjust the drive mode right now because of all the other mayhem that's going on. But that's where when it's working, that's where you adjust that. Here's your parking brake, which is electronic in nature, which is great because they're so much easier to maintain and they work really well. It's a great thing to have. Now, my phone's sitting there, but this has not got a QI charger. If it did, I'm assuming that is where it would be. But they do have a nice little place here for you to put your phone. You also have your dual USB-C ports right there, both of which are 45 watt, which is great. That could power up your device. And then you have your 12 volt right there. And as we go back, here's all these blank switches here that on various models will have all kinds of delightful things you can use there. But here's your engine auto stop-start, which seems to work very, very well on this truck to help save mileage. Engine dies when you go to the stop sign or the stop light, and immediately starts back up when you let off the brakes, and it does really immediately start back up. Works quite well. Toyota's always been pretty good with that. Some of the other manufacturers, to be honest with you, I see the starters wearing out on those vehicles because they take longer than you would think, and I'm assuming this vehicle just has basically a heavy-duty starter on it, but it sure seems to spin the engine up really quickly and really fast. So, and here we have our console, which is fairly deep, not huge, but this is not a huge vehicle. It's big enough that it will do good things for you, and you can tow with it. Oh, and wow, that's a lot of room in there. Actually, that's quite a bit. You could easily get a tablet inside the glove box, tablet computer. I don't know if that's a pre-pro thing or not. That may just be the way it fits. Doesn't rattle. I can vouch for not rattling. So, okay. Now, this vehicle, as far as I know, like so many of these trucks now, you have to get it in a crew cab configuration. And sure enough, this is a crew cab. I don't believe the TRD Sport trim level comes in the extra cab. In addition to the double cab, which is the crew cab, we also have an extra cab version of this truck, which I really want to get my hands on. I want one of those with leaf rear springs instead of the coils, because I think I'm like I said, I'm on the skeptical side of the whole coil spring rear suspension on full size and compact and mid-size pickups. I still prefer leaf springs because I think overall they're just much better way to go. So why don't we take a look in the back seat and see how the room is on this vehicle. Hello, rear door on our double cab, and it opens up just about, as you can see, about 90 degrees, which is always welcome. And you got your big assist right here to get you in. All right then. Let's see. Now I have the seat back fairly far for a 5'8" person, and there's a limited amount of foot room and a limited amount of leg room, but it's not all that bad. It's perfectly acceptable. The thing it isn't is it's definitely not any bigger than what you get with the previous Tacoma. I think that dimensionally speaking, they're very, very close to each other. There may be a slight difference, but overall, you have a very, very mild drive shaft tunnel. It's no big deal. You got this nice, big, also tablet-worthy pocket on the passenger side, and it's so typical. You don't have it on the driver's side. I've never understood that, except maybe it's because the seat comes back further on average in the driver's side, because there's always a person sitting there, and there may not be somebody sitting. Well, I don't know. It's vexing to be sure, but you got your cup holders right here. Dual USB-C ports, and it's really not too bad. That one of the problems I had with the previous editions of the Tundra double cab or crew cab was the fact that the rear seat portion is very upright. It's almost 90, well, not 90 degrees, but it's up to the point where it's just a little bit awkward. This is bordering on awkward, but it's not quite that bad. It's okay. For short trips, perfectly acceptable. Windows go down 100%. I love that. That is so valuable for people. Dogs, actually. Dogs are people too. We have we do not have a armrest here. So you don't have an armrest and you just have a dome light. You don't really have any map lights. So it's semi-Spartan by the nature of the way things are nowadays that have accessories out the wazoo. This is pretty straightforward back here. One thing it'd be good at, it's acceptable for short distances for adults. I don't think you'd want to go from Los Angeles to El Paso or something like that in this truck. Although you get used, if you're small, if you're 6'2", you'd be a little cramped back here. But one of the things I think is great about this, you can just lift this up here and look. Well, doesn't seem to. Oh, here we go. We have now this is interesting. Got to pull this out and do this. There, that holds it up. Why it doesn't just click up in position, who knows. Pre-production, but you got a nice big under-seat storage area. You have a first aid kit back there, which is terrific. And this is your snow removal thing. This is optional, meaning you have to go buy one yourself. But both sides do that so that you have a fair amount of under-seat storage for such a small vehicle. That's pretty cool. Of course, naturally, if you get the I-Force Max engine with the hybrid system, that's where the battery will be, so that will not exist. But if you get the regular engine, the I-Force that we have on this one, you'll have all that storage space. I'm really fascinated by this composite they use because it looks like it's metal these days, and it's a really, really hard plastic. You might want to, if it's like the Tundras, it can get really slick when it gets wet. So there's a couple of options you have. They have a spray-on liner that just put just on the bottom here so you have better traction. Or you can get a mat. They also have a rubber mat. I'm assuming that since the Tundra has it, they'll make a version available for the Tacoma as well. So, alrighty then. That's our interior of our truck. It's still just purring along here. I mean, I don't know what all those warning things mean, but it is. Look at that. Look at that. I'm forever going to be followed by camera shadows. There's a story behind that because I used to work in the film business and I used to have to deal with camera shadows, and you'd think I would have learned, but no, not on YouTube. Anyway, nice interior. Very similar to the old Tacoma, but very different as well. Well, looky here. Look what we have for you. We have the instrument cluster, and it's not going crazy with all the warning lights. I had all these warning lights earlier that I showed you. Or have I showed you that yet? I'll probably show it later in the video. But anyway, let us pretend that hasn't happened yet. And this is our instrument cluster in a normal state, except for one thing. In the right there, you will see the tire pressure indicator light is on, meaning one of the tires is low. And when you first start the vehicle, it indicated to me that it is the right rear tire that is a little low. And I filled it up the other day, so apparently we got a slow leak there. That's what these tire pressure monitors are so good for. They'll tell you these things so you can do something about it. Well, here we go in our Tacoma. The Tacoma that has two-wheel drive. Now, this is something that's interesting to me because I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've never tested a Tacoma that didn't have four-wheel drive. This is the first two-wheel drive I've ever even seen in the modern era. But there you go. That's what you get. Now, I can't drive over stuff I usually, or because this particular version, which is the TRD Sport, has absolutely no underbody armor at all. Nothing. No skid plates, no anything. It also has a, as I described earlier, this is basically a, wow, look at all this traffic. Where'd all this traffic come from? Good grief. Great goobity-boo. It's 3:30 in the afternoon and it's like rush hour, which this road should never have a rush hour. And God, it's one car after another. God. I don't like it. Let's go this way. Well, I tell you, they're perfectly spaced. So here we sit together. As you can see, this has the 14-inch, optional 14-inch screen, which is ludicrously large for such a small cab, but there you go. And also, there's so many things that are, they basically took the Tundra and they've made the Tacoma into a little Tundra. And that includes the good and the bad. One of the things about this is, I swear, it's just like the Tundra. It feels like it is pinching your head. It is actually, it feels a little bit, not claustrophobic because the room is fine. It feels like the floor is lower than on the old Tacoma. But you have this enormous hood in the way. And I don't get it. The visibility just out the front of the vehicle is just not as good as the old one. One thing I will say that's good about it is the hood opens wider than the Tundra does, which is good. That's one of my pet peeves, is the hood doesn't open enough on the Tundra. But it kind of didn't open as much as it should have on the previous generation Tundra, although it's worse on the new one. But this particular vehicle is designed, is like your street sport use. And it's got the coil spring rear suspension. There is a leaf spring rear suspension like the old Tacoma that you can get on certain models. But I still, and I'll say this over and over again, even though Toyota disagrees with me, I think the new coil spring rear suspension doesn't ride any better than the old leaf spring suspension does. And I certainly don't notice it on this vehicle as riding any better, because it's got your basic busy truck ride that you are so used to if you've driven any modern trucks. This particular suspension, like I say, I don't know how different this is going to be when it reaches production form, because they can actually change quite a bit in subtle ways that matter when they go from a pre-production unit to a production unit. So we'll see, but as of right now, this is a real busy ride. I can feel every bump pretty much, and there feels like there's a lot of vibration. Now the thing is, and this is, like I said, modern trucks have been suffering from this for a long time, and some do it better than others. But this particular version, if I had some weight in the back, which incidentally, it has a 1,200-pound payload, which includes naturally all occupants of the cab, and since this is a double cab, a crew cab, if you will, if you have 3 people in it, that's going to knock at least, well, depending if they're big fellers, they all weigh about 200 pounds. That's 600 pounds less of payload, so you're only going to have 600 pounds left to haul. If you had 3 200 pounders in here, or 4 150 pounders, which is much more likely. So anyway, but you also have a 6,400 pound tow limit, which is more than the old Tacoma, which is pretty generous. And that's what this also has the 5-foot bed on it, which is the shorter bed. So, and the engine seems, It's strong, that's for sure, and the transmission shifts very, very smoothly. It's an 8-speed auto. But the ride, like I said, is really, I have to check I'm going to actually check the tire pressure to make sure that's where it should be, because it's really quite busy. I drive down this road with every vehicle I test, and the road you were just on, and usually you don't feel the bumps the way you do with this thing. Work hauling. Now, what I'm looking forward to testing, and I hope they'll give me one at some point, is the extra cab version. Now, the extra cab version seems to me to be, I think you can get one that's much more aimed at being a work truck, and that it doesn't have the coil rear springs. It has leaf springs. It has 2 doors and an extended behind the cab area for tools. Instead of being like a 4-door, it's a 2-door, which most people like, and you can get a longer bed on, a nice long bed. Like, I think you can get up to a 6-foot bed on it. And to me, that makes a whole lot, and it should be less expensive than this, because this vehicle, according to what they gave me, the base price for this vehicle is without options, and it has some very expensive options, including this, the larger screen, better sound system, and all that kind of thing. It starts out at $39,000, like $400 or $900, but all intents and purposes, it starts out at $40,000 for a compact truck. Well, sorry, midsize. So I don't get it. Now, on the plus side, what can I tell you? Well, it's quiet. The tires are quiet, but the tires are like street tires. I'm going to be in big trouble if I get a snowstorm up here while I have this truck, because with 2-wheel drive and sport tires on it, street tires for the most part, it's not going to do very well. It's going to slide around quite a bit. The one thing I will say, and we'll cover this extensively later on in this video, but the frame, which is the same basic frame you get on the Tundra and on the Land Cruiser, looks way bigger than what you would expect for a truck like this. It looks massive. But the thing about that is, one of the things that manufacturers, and I think Ford was the first to do this, but they decided to fully box the frame so they could say it's got a fully boxed frame. And but you don't know how thick the frame is as far as the gauge of the metal. And with these particular frames, they have all kinds of new welding techniques where they can put and take out metal in various parts of the frame to allow your frame has to flex. It can't be completely stiff, especially on pickups. It needs to be able to flex if you have like 1,000 pounds in the back. For ride quality, control, all that kind of thing, it's much, much better, especially if you drive it off-road, because you want to try to keep the wheels on the ground. And if the frame flexes a little bit, it will help you do that. Well, so they can tailor the stiffness of the frame to the application pretty well. But it still looks massive for a small truck like this. It's got an awful lot of frame on it. But as you know, all its competitors, the Ford Ranger and the Chevy Colorado, and of course Ram does not have a midsize. I don't know why they've never made a midsize truck since they got rid of the Dakota. It's weird, actually. But those are the big competitors. And then you have the Nissan Frontier, but who knows what's going on with that, because I think they're dropping the Titan altogether, and they've already dropped some of their excellent vans that are body-on-frame vans that were using the Titan frame. Those vans were very, very popular around here, and they're dropping those too. They don't make those anymore, or they're not going to make them anymore, I should say. Now here's cornering. You can really hear that turbocharger spin up. So another thing this vehicle has that I've turned off mostly is it has, I believe, Toyota Safety Sense 3, and it has, which includes things like what's it called? Advanced Adaptive Predictive. That's it. Predictive Driving Assistant. PDA. That's it. And that, if it thinks you're getting into trouble, it'll put brakes on or steer the vehicle. I instantly turn that off because I find it completely intrusive. It also has lane departure warnings. I've been able, fortunately, thank God, you can still turn all that off. All of that is turned off. So it's in that sense, I'm not having to deal with it, and that because if I had it turned on, I'd be complaining. I guarantee I'd be complaining about it right now. But it seems to, the cornerings, it's like one thing it shares with the Tundra that's good, and that is the steering precision is excellent, and the steering feedback is very, very good, which is amazing considering they had such a problem when they first started doing electrically boosted power steering. They were having real problems getting the feel right. Everybody was, across the board. Everybody that had an electric steering for the first time in their cars and trucks, it took them a while to get everything dialed in right, but now they're beautiful. I mean, they're really good. I'm very impressed with that. And it also is beneficial. I just had a vehicle, which I shall talk about it when that video appears. It may have already been launched. I don't know if I did or not yet, but when you come up to the light like I'm doing right now and coming to a stop as I'm doing right now, and there we go, the engine auto stop is on, but look, I still have power steering. Because it's electric, it's still going. Brilliant. Thank you, Toyota. Then now y'all may be looking at me going, ooh? Well, the vehicle I just had, and I want to say it was an Impreza, but I'm not sure. I have to double check that. When the engine went into auto stop mode, like it is now, you lost your power steering completely. It literally, you could hardly steer the wheel at all, do anything with the wheel. And I like what I just did is just by turning the wheel, it started the engine up too because of, I don't know, maybe battery concerns or something. But as you saw, with the engine completely turned off, I still had power steering. And that is an advantage that you should take advantage of when you have electrically boosted power steering, because that is a real good feature to have. Let's give it some welly here now. Yeah, for those that just buy things to go zooming about, they'll like this truck, or probably they're just going to like this new engine a lot because it's really peppy, really responsive. You got that nice low torque peak. I would imagine it will tow really nicely. But as we'll go through this review, I'll show you the things that I don't like about it, and they happen to be the same things, most of which are the same things I don't like about the new Tundra. And I really wish they'll change them. I hope they'll change them, but naturally, that one of the reasons everything's so quiet and we're zooming along is because of that massive front air dam, which everybody has been complaining about. And I don't blame them, because we have I had it parked next to a Toyota RAV4 hybrid. And the Toyota RAV4 hybrid has a better approach angle than this pickup does. And that's just unheard of, especially with Tacomas, because Tacomas have always been fairly high off the ground. This also, the TRD Sport package, also has larger disc brakes, 13 point something inches as opposed to 12. And the brakes are very good, very smooth. Naturally, you have four-wheel discs. You also have the good old electric parking brake, which has been one of those improvements. There's been a few improvements out there that have really been beneficial, advancements, if you will, and that's one of them. Because on pickups in particular, there's been so much trouble with especially up here in the Northeast where you get a lot of salt, and the engine just kicked back on again after sitting, and now it's gone off again. And imagine you can also get the iForce Max version of this, and that is an inline turbocharged four-cylinder engine with a hybrid, the same hybrid system basically it's on the Tundra, which I would strongly advise people to bypass, just because it doesn't do anything for you but add weight, complexity, and cost, because it's not that much better. I mean, if you want that much more torque at low end, what do you need that for? Unless you're towing all the time, a really big trailer. You know, as much as it, and incidentally, I haven't checked on this, but I will. With the Tundra, the maximum towing that you can get is not with the more powerful engine. It's lower with the more powerful engine, because the hybrid system and everything adds weight to the point that it won't tow as much as the non-hybrid version. I'm assuming this truck is the same way. At the bottom of the screen right now, it's going to say yes or no as to whether or not that's true. But I believe it probably is the way things are, simply because for the same reasons. You're adding weight and complexity, but you're really not adding a whole lot more that will make it more, that'll give it the ability to tow more. You have to also remember something else. This truck weighs about, I believe, 4,300 pounds. And when you start to get in these bigger trailers that weigh so much more than the truck does, it's a little bit of a problem. And people will point out, wait a minute, tractor trailer trucks. Now those tractors weigh a lot that pull them, but the trailer weighs many times more than, yeah, you're right, but that tractor is designed to do one thing, pull the trailer. So everything about it is designed to do that. It is not designed to drive around town without a trailer attached. That's not their number one concern. You can do that if you want to, but it's designed to pull that enormous trailer, and they do such a good job at doing that. But when it comes to regular passenger vehicles and passenger pickups, you want to get something. In order to tow the bigger trailers, you need a heavier vehicle. And that's why so many people, if they're going to tow over about 7,000 pounds, they'll go ahead and jump up to a 3/4 ton pickup, which unfortunately Toyota has yet to manufacture. Well, here's the front suspension. Now here's the thing that I find so odd, so unfamiliar to me. This is a Tacoma double wishbone front suspension with your coilover shock up there, and everything's there. But look, right here, there's no drive shaft. If I put my laser up in here, there's nothing there. And that's because, yes, this is in fact a two-wheel drive model. But as it has shown me over the past few days, it does real well, considering that most pickups, when they're two-wheel drive only, meaning the rear drivetrain, and you have an unloaded bed, a lot of times these things are prone to slip around and do all kinds of things. But this truck has been doing very well, and it also has a limited slip differential situation, which is automatic, and it seems to work well. It hasn't even had to engage much, to be honest with you, because the coil spring rear suspension, one of the good things about it is it does help keep the wheels on the ground in uneven terrain. So it's been working fine. But let us focus on the front here. As you can see, it's so weird that there's no drive shaft. I've complained because this vehicle doesn't have any skid plates on it. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised that you could buy them from your Toyota dealer as parts and just bolt them right on. I wouldn't be surprised at all if you wanted to do that. However, it should be noted that while there's our oil pan right there, and you can even see our old drain plug. Shall I, hang on there, hang on. Here we go, the instrument is out. There we go, there's our drain plug right there. It's protected pretty well by this cross member. I mean, if you hit it from the front, you'd have to go from here over to here. My point being, the engine is so high up, you're okay without a skid. If you do a little off-roading in this vehicle, it's so high off the ground, I think everything's pretty much out of harm's way. It also has something very interesting, is this stuff. I don't know what this stuff is. Hang on. This right here, it's this stuff that everybody's putting on undercladding for cars, primarily for aerodynamic reasons. But this does offer a little bit of protection as far as to the lower side of the engine. Now, I mean, what I mean is, what you have in here is you got hoses, and if you look in here, you can see here's the front of our motor, and here's our lower part of our radiator. There's a bit of protection here. So you're not running around naked with stuff hanging down on the ground the way I may have made it sound, and that's good. Now there's we could probably pull this off real easy with these bolts, which you can, and then that will give you easy access to your oil filter, which is right there, right there. It's not a canister with an insert. It is an old style steel spin-on oil filter that you're very familiar with probably if you've been working on cars since you're littling. Other interesting thing about this, in addition, you can't miss this enormous frame, by the way. It's just everywhere, and it does look really, really substantial. You also have, this here is what I call a restraint hook. It's not really something that you want to pull yourself out if you're stuck somewhere, as much as it's good for tying down onto vehicles, like when they bring it up from Mexico probably, which, by the way, so many trucks are made in Mexico from all the manufacturers. That's what you use to help tie it down. But if you look over here, look what we have here on this non-off-road vehicle. A real nice recovery hook. Something that is a foreign animal to the Tundra. And everybody's been complaining about that. And this is the same basic frame, right? That's what they say. And yet there you go. They had no trouble putting a recovery hook right there, so I don't know why it's taken them so long. They've had 2 years to do it, and as near as I can tell, they haven't done it yet. But, and I have a test coming up that will compare the Sequoia TRD Pro to the Tundra TRD Pro. That's coming very soon. But anyhow, you can really, really see how amazingly substantial this frame is. Pardon me. And from this angle, you can also tell the fact that it has I think maybe two crossovers that are very, very substantial. So all these things can be fine-tuned from the application, whether it's the Land Cruiser or the Tundra or this or possibly the new 4Runner if we ever see it. I'm sure it's probably going to be using the same frame. It can be, due to the latest welding processes, they can put different patches in the sides of the frame in order to ensure that it flexes where it should and stays stiff where it needs to stay stiff. So that's why they've gone, that's one of the reasons why the idea was appealing to a lot of engineers to have just one basic frame for all these vehicles, because they can fine-tune the stiffness pretty easily. Although I would argue that you can do that with the previous version, because the Sequoia and the Tundra and the previous Tacoma had a version of this, which was the triple tech frame, which looks just like this in the front. It was boxed in the front down to about where that cross member is there, and then it went to a double C channel, which went back to where the bed was, and then from the beginning of the bed to the end of the truck, it was open C channel. And this is to allow different types of flex during different parts of the frame to optimize ride and handling. And supposedly they do the same thing with this one, but they do it in a different way by putting different types of metal in there. One of the big things I'm always concerned about with fully boxed frames like this in the Northeast is salt can get in, but can it get out? And I'm told that this is designed to drain very, very efficiently. And it's like coated on the inside. I think they got wax on the inside. They've done all kinds of things to try to keep that from happening. But an open C channel was still the best way to go, in my opinion, because you could just, when you wash the underside of the truck, it gets washed out. It's not an enclosed box that can hold all that salt and nastiness in there. So there you go. There is no front differential. Not here. Just two-wheel drive. But a very substantial suspension on a very substantial frame. Now, let's look at that rear suspension, which is the star of the show, sort of. Well, okay then. So this is on our all-new Tacoma, the all-new rear suspension. That is on most models, I believe. There's also leaf springs available on certain other models. Not available, that's what it comes with. But what we have is the identical setup pretty much, as near as I can tell, to the Tundra, which makes sense since it's using the same basic chassis as the Tundra. But you have your lower link. Wait a minute, let's get the device out. There we go. The lower link is this one right here. There we are, yonder. And the upper link is hidden up in here, but I assure you it is here. But there's an upper link here, so that's 2 links. Then you got this panhard rod right here that goes all the way across side to side. And that's what locates the rear axle. And then you have the big old coil spring right there. And then on both sides, outboard of the frame, you have the shock absorbers that are both mounted in the same direction. You might notice that when you have leaf springs, one shock is mounted in the front of the axle and one shock is mounted typically in the back. So that way that stops wheel hop under really hard acceleration. This type of system doesn't need that because it has these huge links that locate the front part of the axle. Good stout differential right here. I don't recall the ratio right off, but I'll put it on the bottom of the screen. You're looking at it now, I hope. You can also see that it has a real stout drive shaft, not as big as the Tundra, because nothing on earth is as big as the Tundra aluminum drive shaft. It's massive. And I kid, some of the heavy-duty trucks have drive shafts of the same size, but I think in the half-ton realm, nothing's bigger than that Tundra drive shaft. There's a big fuel tank. It holds quite a bit of fuel, and as you can see here, it has no skid plate on it. So that's one area that I would like to see a skid plate on across the board on all the trucks. But again, as I stated before, it's so high off the ground that it's probably going to stay out of harm's way for most of your driving. And this is the street bias version after all. It is designed and tuned to handle well on pavement. That's why it has the TRD Sport designation. The shocks are calibrated for that. The springs probably are different than the regular Tacoma, I would think, for that reason. The suspension's pretty stiff. It doesn't have the world's greatest ride quality, but it does have a lot of toughness to it. You can run over stuff, that's for sure. I've done that. I've gone over some boulder-like things, and the suspension's quite stout. And again, you get another shot at how solid this frame is, and you would have no worry whatsoever towing to its limit at 6,400 pounds, because structurally it's really well built. You can see, if you look up in here, the bottom of that composite bed, which is pretty thick, whatever that stuff is. I've never actually ascertained exactly what that composite material is. It may be a special brew that is proprietary to Toyota, I don't know. And I also don't know, because I asked about recycling, because the Tundra now has a very similar composite, probably the exact same one, and they didn't really give me much of an answer about what happens at end-of-life processes to that polymer. It's great that it doesn't rust, but at the same time, you don't want something that's going to be around forever in a landfill when the truck finally gives up the ghost, like in 40 years or something. So that's your basic rear suspension on the coil spring version. And with any luck at all, I'll get a leaf spring version later in the year, and we'll compare the two. Here's one thing I don't understand that drives me absolutely crazy. But why are they putting these temporary spare tires on pickups? This is a temporary spare tire. Look at how thin. It's just designed for temporary use only. Why? Why don't they put a full-size spare? It's again one of these de-trucking of trucks that I don't approve of. I do not approve. I like it if they would keep things functional, and that there seems to be a notion among some people that people don't get flats anymore. The hell they don't. I've gotten plenty of flats on some of the new vehicles too. As a matter of fact, I have a slow leak on one of these tires. Don't tell me that you don't need, and I'm sure a full-size 18-inch would fit under here. It's got plenty of room for it. So I don't know. They're trying to save a few pounds, I guess. And probably a little bit of money, I'm not sure. Oh, while I'm back here, as you can see, the trailer receiver, the hitch receiver is beautiful on this thing. It's really stout, really well designed. And here's once again, our transit hooks are right there. But here, look at this. If you look here, it says lift and lift. It's like a lifting point. I'm not sure if... Is that a pre-production thing, or is that going to be on all the trucks? Because that's very interesting. I suppose you could put a high lift jack in there and lift the rear of the vehicle. But again, this is not an off-road vehicle. This is a road vehicle. So maybe that's just a standard thing on these Tacomas. I'll try to find out. That'll be a tough one to get an answer on, I think. But it looks to be completely incorporated into the rear frame, so maybe they all have that. So if you have a high lift jack, you're in good shape. Also, this goes back a number of years, but I think Toyota was one of the first to put your trailer electricals right next to the license plate, nice and high, and very, very easy to get to. And another thing, if you're plugging your trailer in at night or unplugging it, you got the wonderful license plate light right here, so you can see it. I mean, it's such a smart move whenever they did it, and I think Toyota may have been the first to do that. It's the first truck I ever saw it on. And it's kind of like a lot of people don't realize the first backup camera on a pickup truck was Toyota. Now, one question here, how's our travel? Well, this being the sport model, designed for handling on the road, I'm thinking it may have a little less travel than some of the other TRD off-road versions, because this tire is not off the ground, but it's close. See, we're compressed over here, and we're extended over here. So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if it's a little more designed to keep the vehicle flat during cornering, which would eliminate a little bit, some of the travel that you might have in the rear suspension. And again, it's hard to say because there's so many, right now, from looking at the spec sheets and stuff, there are a lot of different models of the new Tacoma for you to choose from. You have a lot of different trim levels, and not only just the amount of equipment is there, but also the purpose, if you will. Like a TRD Pro is going to be very, very different from this TRD Sport because they're kind of designed for a different type of driving. So think about what you want, and they'll probably have one that'll suit your needs. All right? All right, onward. Well, okay then, here's your pre-production Monroney for your pre-production Tacoma. As you can see, we don't have a lot of pricing on it. The base price is $39,400, and it has quite a few options, so that'll run you up a little higher. But the good thing about this pre-production is I did this earlier, as you can tell. It was back in the early spring, and now the production vehicles are on the lots, so you can see exactly what you get, what the exact pricing is, and off you go. I enjoyed this for the most part, except for all the warning lights. But again, with a pre-production thing, you never know what's going on, and I imagine all these bugs have been taken out of it by now. One thing that has not changed, I am aware of, is that there is no engine cover, so that's a new thing that they're going to go with apparently. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time, and please be careful out there.
Whatever the tube tells you, you dress like the tube, you eat like the tube, you raise your children like the tube, you even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.